NFL Pick Six show, week number 8. We're doing this live. Oh, we're doing it live. All right, take one. We're continuing on through. Usual suspects: Rich Hribar, sharp football analysis. John Daigle, 4 for 4. Daigle, what's going on? Hopefully, your week's been going better than my intro. How are things in your world?
Doing well. Week 8, the NFL took bye weeks away from us because they don't care about our personal life, but we're still here. Credit where it's due. I actually had a down week all last week. I was pretty negative because I just saw all those totals and I thought, man, like football's not even going to be fun, but it was fun. That was a lot of fun on Sunday. We had some really good games. Points were scored, both factually and quite a few of them. So yeah, it was a good slate.
Would you agree with that, Rich? Did you have fun last week watching football, despite the fact we had a lot of low totals and only 10 games in the main slate? But I guess we made do, right? It wasn't so bad.
Yeah, we bounced back and recoiled from week 6. The same thing as week 1, right? You get down when you have a week like week 1 or week 6 where all the totals are bad. But typically, the regression in the NFL works swiftly.
Well, we're going to need that again this week because the biggest total now it's a 13 game main slate, right? No buys at all. Obviously, you focus on the main slate. Don't talk about Thursday night so much, or Sunday night that is, or Monday night. The 13-game main slate has the biggest total on the board is Miami and New England, 46.5. Denver, Kansas City. We'll talk about them soon enough. This show, if this is your first time tuning in, where have you been? Secondly, we focus on three main games, the 3 main games on the main slate, and then we break those down from multiple angles. And what we do is we run it back and give our favorite players, position by position, quarterback, receiver, tight end, running back. We also talk a little bit of movies. We'll do that later on in the back end of the show. That said, we should give a shout out to the week 7 listener league winner is Token. Shout out to Token. I assume it's Token, Tokken or Token. I'm not sure. Either way, congratulations. You took down the listener league. And with that, not only did you get the winnings for taking it down, you get yourself a 1 month free of RotoGrinders Premium, RG Premium. Do DM me, DFS_Almanac on Twitter. Let us know in the comment section here. Some way we want to get you paid off. We want to get that, the premium juiced up for you. And of course, we're running that back one more time. And congratulations to Rich Hribar, the first time this year you get to recommend a movie for all of us to watch later on the show. And we're all excited because pressure's on. I feel like the energy is that we're waiting for some kind of shift. And I'm a part of that, I suppose. You guys didn't love my suggestions, which is fine. But yeah, are you feeling the pressure? Do you have a movie in the back pocket? Are you going to look at the chat? Maybe the chat will give you some suggestions here. Those that listen to us live.
We'll throw some stuff out there. Jordan Love got it home. I was like, when you guys told me, I was like, well, they must have set some real bad lineups. I know I didn't throw a good one in there. I always like to try to win with a bad stack, and it was the Jordan Love special, who somehow keeps kind of getting there for fantasy football, even though he is objectively one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yes. You don't have to be faster than the bear. You just got to be like faster than like the slowest person running away from the bear, right? The bear caught me. Absolutely got me this week. Unfortunately, I put up a very poor showing in the listener league. How about yourself there?
I launched Josh Dobbs into that contest. He did fine. He had the rushing touchdown.
Yeah.
It's still not going pretty through the air, but that wasn't the thesis of the play, except that he didn't drag anyone with him. Marquise Brown still just getting these prayer yards out here. So, yeah, that didn't go well.
Well, maybe that changes for Marquise Brown. Hollywood's got himself this is a first blood revenge game, right? First blood revenge game this week. I think this is the first time we've been facing his former team, the Baltimore Ravens. We're not going to be focusing on that game, but I do think it's an interesting game. Maybe we'll talk about
some players in that game, I'm sure. It's the Cardinals. Listen, if the Cardinals are playing, there'll be some guys playing against the Cardinals.
Well, not just that, Rich, but the old Wednesday night optimals, grain of salt optimals, right? Baby. And you know how we this is how we pick our tight end, just whoever the most popular tight end is on a Wednesday night, as far as the optimals. This might be some foreshadowing. As far as tight ends. And
it's got to go better than Michael Mayer, I'm sure.
Was Mayer the number one last week? I know Andrews was hitting some.
He was like the same boat, right? Like 2,700, 2,800. Everyone was going to play him at this point. I don't know if people did. Last week, I think when we talked about it, though, we were all on Mark Andrews. It was his price was just favorably and we wanted to get him in. We talked about the Lions game. Lamar ended up being super chalky by the time we got to Sunday. Everyone played Lamar. But we kind of talked about the game. The Lions, hilariously, actually had an RB1, a wide receiver 1, and a tight end 1 in that game for fantasy scoring, and only scored 6 offensive points. That has to be one of the few times that's ever happened. But Gibbs, Amon-Ra, and Laporta all got there for fantasy, and that team was they failed hard.
Well, it was like 35-0. Like what? They still didn't pull the starters. They stayed in really, really late, and I was just kind of surprised. Like you said, you mentioned Gibbs. Gibbs got there. Amon-Ra didn't get in the box, but he was like fine. Didn't get 19 targets. Lineup. Yeah, I mean it just seemed really strange that they stuck in the game so long. But I guess Dan
Campbell doesn't quit, Dean.
He cares about your fantasy team. So some of these, I'll tell you, Arthur Smith doesn't, but Dan Campbell does. He cares about your fantasy team for sure. All right. Very first game, let's talk about it. The Saints and the Colts. 43.5 is the total. Colts are 1.5 point favorites. Man, the Colts were in probably one of the more wild games. Speaking of fun, John, this might have been what you were alluding to last week. The Colts in the shootout with Cleveland. So kind of surprisingly, Cleveland pretty good defense. But Minshew, he's like the perfect quarterback for this kind of nonsense, but both defensively, offensively, for high variance. And also, this one's expected to be played super fast. And I assume this is part of the reason why you picked this game. We're looking at a ton of plays for the Saints versus the Colts and a dome game as well. Where do you want to start here, John, as far as the Saints at the Colts?
Start with the Colts side of the ball, because this game features 2 quarterbacks who are not good when you watch them, but they end up good in fantasy, kind of because they're their own worst enemies, and that they're getting volume because they have to get volume because they dig their own graves every single week. Even in Minshew's 3 starts for Anthony Richardson this year, the game plan under Shane Steichen hasn't changed. The Colts are number 1 in most combined points per game. They're averaging a league high 46.6 dropbacks. They are averaging 75 plays per game, which is number 1, and then 15 drives per week as well. It's just the volume that we're providing on both sides of the ball here. Not only that, but then we talk about, okay, what about Derek Carr, who's also been awful? But again, because Derek Carr has been terrible, that's why he has 50 plus pass attempts in his last 2 games. He's been over 300 yards now in consecutive games as well, and is 7th in pass attempts per game. So we just think the volume can get here, and then it's just a matter of trying to piece together the correct combination. And honestly, for the Colts, it's almost pretty easy. We saw Zach Moss pop up as a DNP today. It's only Wednesday. We'll see what happens. That'll naturally probably get Jonathan Taylor involved in the field if he's the only running back available. But we have so much confidence in Josh Downs in this spot. Michael Pittman has still led the team from Minshew with a 28% target share, Downs at 22%, but they've created their own little poor man's Dolphins target tree. And that the next closest on the team is Alec Pierce at 12%. No one else is even involved. The running backs are getting chipped in. They have a 3rd highest target rate, but there's still 2 players combining there, whereas it's just the 2 big wide receivers. And we know the Saints have leaked the 8th most fantasy points per game to opposing slot receivers where Josh Downs plays. And Downs, although he's considered a small slot receiver, he plays so much bigger for his size. He also gets downfield. Even last week, he had a 60-yard touchdown. It was a broken play, but he's the one who figured it out and ran upfield. So it just seems like his spot is significantly better, in my opinion, than Michael Pittman's as well. So we already have the starting pieces for this high volume game.
Rich, we're considering salary. Who do you prefer, Pittman versus Downs? I know Downs has been better of late. 4.8K on DK for Downs, 6.5 for Pittman. Both certainly in play.
Yeah, I definitely prefer Downs as well. Just when you talk about the matchup in a sense too, I mean, the Saints are very similar structurally to how they play defense, like the Browns. I mean, they're 4th in the NFL in man coverage rate. They play cover 1 at one of the highest rates in the league. So he's going to get a similar treatment like he got last week, Michael Pittman, that is, where when he lines up outside, he saw a lot of Denzel Ward. He's going to see a lot of Marshawn Lattimore. The Saints have allowed the fewest points per game to opposing wide receiver 1s. And against man coverage, Downs actually has the highest target rate per route run on the team when Minshew's in the game. So everything's kind of favors Downs, salary, matchup. It just all lines up for him.
You mentioned Lattimore. How much do you care about Lattimore, who he's on? And I know quarterback, wide receiver.
Not much, but I mean, it's one of those things that it's more signal for Downs.
But like if there was a Family Feud board, like a power rankings, however you want to say it, of like the dudes you want to
there
avoid
aren't
the most.
many good like individual cornerbacks anymore. Like look, we have good cornerbacks in the NFL, but because the defensive meta is so different than it was when we were young, where like not anyone really plays man coverage anymore. So like we don't have to have like those cover guys. No one really shadows anymore because no one's really playing man coverage. So we have very few of those guys left. Lattimore is one of those guys that because right now like people consider like Sauce Gardner one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL, but he doesn't move. He just stands over there at left cornerback and doesn't change. He doesn't leave at all the entire game. We have very few of those. Trayvon Diggs is one of those guys that would move around at some guys, but we don't really have those guys anymore in the NFL.
Yeah, I was just curious where you're at on that because I've heard. I think part of the reason why Ridley supposedly was bad last game was I didn't have my hand in the dirt. I wasn't watching the tape, but was that part of the reason that you catch that vibe?
Part of it. Yeah, I mean, same thing. And Calvin Ridley, if you watch Jaguars games, like all he's getting right now is vertical stuff outside the numbers. Like he's getting really nothing. He's getting no freebie targets in that offense right now.
So if both Taylor, if Moss is good to go, Rich, like at some point, right? We're all waiting. Taylor has to. It's inevitable. He has to separate himself from Moss. Like theoretically, right? They paid him a ton. I know Moss is getting paid a little bit, sure, and he's been good. And also they're running the ball a lot because they're running a lot of plays too.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say they both play.
And they had 40 touches last week.
Yeah, so that's like 20 each. It's
the two
which is kind of like almost a full-time share on some other teams, right?
And they were lining up. They were lining up Jonathan Taylor at wide receiver at points of that game. He caught a slant. It's just like they're doing some creative things with those guys, probably because, like Daigle said, Alec Pierce isn't doing much, not getting anything out of their tight ends right now at all in the passing game. So they're getting some creative usage with Jonathan Taylor last week too. So that was nice to see.
John, what do you got as far as the running game there? Outside of like, obviously if Moss doesn't go for whatever reason, we don't know on a Wednesday, then if Taylor would be massive chalk. But is there enough for both of them to go around to like pick one and hopefully, we get a ceiling game out of 20 touches, which is still fine.
Well, they're practically still just splitting touches since Taylor only had 3 more than Moss last week. But yeah, maybe if it's only Taylor, I'll have to see how it works out. Then we're kind of in another situation where 2 weeks ago, we played 65% Mostert because he was the only running back getting touches. Last week, that was Ken Walker who got the 100-yard bonus. So I'll have to see how the field shakes out with 13 games this week.
Well, I can tell you right now, they're all playing Breece Hall on DraftKings.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's going to certainly help. He's in the player pool at the end. We'll talk about him later. But I don't know.
He's 5,900 against the Giants. I imagine he's going to be pretty popular.
We'll have to see because every touch is a good reason, but like 50% against this Saints defense that like only one running back has reached over 60 rushing yards all year. That was Derrick Henry, and he only got to 63. Travis Etienne, like even last Thursday, he scored 2 touchdowns, but he averaged 3.7 yards per carry. Like he wasn't really efficient at all. So I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see what else opens up because there are some cheap running backs too. I just don't know if we need to go there yet.
Rich, what about the Alvin Kamara? Like how many more receptions is he going to get? Carr just keeps dumping it off and dumping it off and dumping it off to him. Are we going to be chasing that? Is that still how sustainable is it, I suppose? How much do you like Kamara this week?
I mean, you got to like him on DraftKings. He's just really suited there. He's just getting so many targets. Since he's come back, only Tyreek Hill has been targeted at a higher rate per route run, which doesn't seem optimal way to run your offense, but that's what the Saints are doing. They're like dialing plays up. Like they've gone through a couple 4th downs. There were a couple weeks ago against the Texans. They had a 4th down that cost them the game, and they literally just ran a designed play to Alvin Kamara, and he didn't make it. They did the same thing. He just ran an option route on 4th down last week, and he did it. He cooked the linebacker and got it. But like that's like what they're doing. It's like they're not really calling like any other stuff and like high leverage things except for plays to Alvin Kamara, which is good because he hasn't run the ball well at all. All the same issues that they had last year running the football, which has led to just like the drop back rate, like Daigle said, with a Carr throwing 50 times last 2 weeks because they can't line up and just smash mouth anybody. So yeah, on DraftKings, he's really good over there. He takes a little bit of a sting on Fanduel, and then we still haven't seen because he also loses some of the touchdown equity in that offense because we've seen Taysom Hill get the short rushing touchdown last week, and we know Jamal Williams is still going to factor in at some point probably in that area, but he's really good on DraftKings.
You got to take here as far as Kamara. No surprise on the optimals. Kamara is number 1, Pollard number 2, and Breece Hall. So there you go, the aforementioned Breece Hall. is the most popular running backs currently hitting my optimals right now on a Wednesday. Yeah, John, how much do we like Kamara? And feel free to go, beyond that as far as the Saints offense.
I could see myself, if I need to spin down at quarterback, paying down and for Derek Carr and just hoping for the 300-yard bonus and bringing along Alvin Kamara that way. Again, I have a better idea of those kind of things structurally by Friday evening. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing really else to say about Kamara. Rich kind of said it all. He has 19 more targets than the next closest running back, and he's played 4 games. I mean, they have nowhere else to go. That's where the ball's going. Even like these Chris Olave targets, like Chris Olave had a 30.5% target share in his first 3 games without Kamara, and now these last 4, he's dipped all the way to 20%. Maybe it could be some of that toe injury he's been battling, but also Derek Carr has the 6th lowest on target rate on throws 10 yards downfield. You go back to that game on Thursday night against the Jaguars where Carr launched it out of bounds over Olave's head, and it's just a lot of targets like that I don't think even get there. So you're kind of just hoping one of those big plays come to fruition for the Saints. Not only that, but it seems like we're going to get Juwan Johnson back, so you have to take Taysom Hill out of the pool as well, since Johnson will be involved. The only other real option, like if you're looking to spin down at wide receiver, will be Rashid Shaheed, because he is getting usage. Like he's run a route on over 80% of dropbacks in 4 of his last 5 games. The one outlier being that Patriots blowout where they beat them down 34-0 a couple weeks back. And like Olave has this 20% target share with Kamara. Shaheed's right behind him at 15.4%. Like Shaheed's actually not getting lost whenever they have to pass. And again, they have to pass because they're so bad. So you're really just hoping one of those big plays get there.
You mentioned Juwan Johnson, one of my best ball darlings earlier in the year, coming back from injury. Hopefully that should be interesting to see how he works in. Let me see, Rich.
They shouldn't take Taysom off the field. Like he actually adds something to that offense, as hilarious as that is. He's like their 3rd, 4th best player. They need to keep him involved, honestly.
That's more of an indictment on the rest of the team, but by calling him like
Correct.
the 3rd best player. Yeah,
yes.
Okay. It's not necessarily like this huge compliment for Taysom, but yeah, Rich, you're making a game stack. Carr is 5.5, Minshew's 5.4. You can only make one lineup. Who are you starting with?
Probably the Carr side. I want to play Olave. I mean, Olave, all his peripherals look pretty good. No team plays more cover 3 than the Colts do. Olave leads the team in target rate against cover 3. He has 41% of team air yards. He's been targeted on 30% of his routes against cover 3. And the best part about it is only 10% of his targets against cover 3 have been inaccurate from Derek Carr, as opposed to 21% against other looks. And he's averaging more yards per out run than any other coverage that he faces as well. So, and then you factor in just the Colts in general have really struggled against wide receiver ones in totality. So yeah, I'm interested in him. He's hopefully he runs as fast as he was driving this week, and we can put up those points.
I saw a note on Twitter that what the PFF tweeted out that like Olave has 0 drops. Like I think the most targets maybe was 0 drops. And then I saw like people tweeting like, here's him dropping the ball here, here's him dropping the ball there. Who scores these things? What's officially a drop? Is there a gray area? Do you guys know? Any insight? You know what I'm talking about?
No, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it's still pretty subjective.
Yeah.
There are certain plays too. Like, I mean, and drops don't largely matter to me anyways. You earn targets. I mean, Devontae Adams had a touchdown he probably should have caught. Like 2 weeks ago, Puka Nacua didn't get credit for a drop, but it's like a play you kind of count on him to make more than he misses, right? Like,
yeah. All right. Anything else as far as this game it's worth talking about? Michael Thomas is like has no ceiling, right? There's no ceiling. So what's the point? He's not the guy he was 5 years ago. Shockingly enough.
I mean, even with a touchdown last week, but he's like so Consetti like this year, right? Like, doesn't he have like 42 to like 55 yards like in every game? Like it's like every box score looks the exact same.
He has a extremely high
10 PPR points. You're getting those.
Yeah. He's like Rich Band's Wan'Dale Robinson.
If you need 10 PPR points, he'll get you 10 PPR points. If you need 12, he'll get you 10. That old joke, right?
Yeah. That's kind of where he's living right now. Good for him, though. I'm glad he's healthy and, he's out there thriving.
There you go. All right. I guess let's move on. Let's talk about, hey, this was late swapped in. I'm curious why. I feel like There must be some reason why. We got Pittsburgh and Jacksonville late swapped in here from John. Jacksonville getting 2.5 points here. Wait, did I write that wrong? They're probably 2.5 point favorites, aren't they? They can't be right. They're not 2.5 point dogs for Pittsburgh. I wouldn't think so. Wait. Oh, the game's in Pittsburgh. That's what I wrote up wrong. Okay. Jacksonville at Pittsburgh. I knew I did something goofy here. And Pittsburgh is getting 2.5 at home. 41.5 is the total. John, did you uncover something and say like there's something we got to talk about as far as Jacksonville and Pittsburgh? Are you like a founding member of the Kenny Pickett fan club? What do we want to talk about as far as the Jags and the Steelers?
It was really just because sometimes I get ahead of myself and like some overs and then start breaking down the environment. And I got to the Panthers side and I was like, what the hell am I going to sell anyone on here? Like, am I going to go on and try to talk about like a post-buy rookie bump from Jonathan Mingo? Or are we just going to call it quits with Adam Thielen? So
Hey, they got a new offensive coordinator.
I do kind of like that game still. We'll talk about in positional plays, but I couldn't get there for the full game. But really for the Jaguars Steelers, I think it's one of the more sneakier environments if we can get some push from the Steelers offensive side of the ball. Because even last week against the Rams, man, and through 3 quarters, they had 110 yards of offense. They really only got their touchdown because TJ Watt had that sideline to sideline, amazing interception against Matthew Stafford right out of the half. And he put them inside the 10-yard line, which Kenny Pickett then just scrambled in for. But if it weren't for TJ Watt, like getting their offense down there, who knows if they would have been able to drive the field at all. So that's eventually what happened. But still, this defense can be exploited. Maybe Tomlin still has more voodoo in his bag. And if Tomlin keeps doing this, by the way, just forget Mike McDaniel. Go ahead and give Tomlin Coach of the Year if he drags the carcass of Kenny Pickett and this Steelers team to the playoffs. But 10th in pressure rate, even so, they're still allowing explosive all the times. Literally the fifth highest explosive rate through the air in the league. And we saw Trevor Lawrence come back at full strength. Not only 60 rushing yards, he's going to wear the knee brace again this week, but he already looked at full health. Also the QB9 on the week too. So I just think we have some potency through the air here, and we kind of know where we would like to target with him and Christian Kirk, and to a lesser extent, Evan Ingram, unless you want to take a chance on Calvin Ridley's ceiling.
Yeah, I mean, may get Zay Jones back this week. It seems like there's a decent chance. I know we didn't practice today on a Wednesday, but I guess keep an eye on that, I suppose. By the way, I'm all for Tomlin. I feel like he's one of the more underrated coaches the last so many years. He's been around forever, too. But, and it's just wild that Pittsburgh has had, 2 coaches for, 60 years or something like that?
Because Tomlin's, clearly a good coach at, the stuff that matters, right? Maxing out, player effort and things like that. But he's, a really bad coach at the things that you need to actually win at. So it's kind of a hand in one and a hand in the other. Cause I feel like it's almost like he's such a good coach at the things he's really good at that it's almost been bad for the Steelers in big picture.
I think retroactively he didn't get enough credit for how he coached and I guess dealt with Antonio Brown. I don't know how you want to say it.
Well, I mean, listen, you've seen what happened with Chandler Jones. Listen, you don't know what these guys put their bodies through, man.
Sure. But
by the way, things happen later on in life when you scramble your brains for 10 years playing, you're playing football.
Yeah, that's a fair point for sure. I was going to mention, by the way, the Hard Knocks, the in-season Hard Knocks. Speaking of coaches, I don't know if you guys heard this. Rich, our beloved McDaniel. Any opportunity for more McDaniel clips. I don't know if you're a Hard Knocks guy or not, but I'm excited about the in-season Hard Knocks with the Dolphins. They could not have picked a better team, as far as I'm concerned, because we get more,
I usually don't watch, but I make time for McDaniel. I even listen to that.
Same.
I even listened to that play caller series on the Athletic this offseason just because McDaniel was on there.
I haven't listened to that, but now you got to point me in that direction. I'm definitely going to check it out for sure. I love his sound bites. Rich, what do you have as far as Pittsburgh, Jacksonville? How do you feel about this game? What team you want to focus on first?
Yeah, but to Jacob's point in the chat, never having a losing season, that's the badge of honor. Going 8-8, going 9-9, that's not it. Tomlin's actually prevented them from getting over the hump in recent years, actually cashing in, and a lot of his not falling on the sword for some guys that he should, like Matt Canada right now. the Steelers are a completely stuck in purgatory team right now, like from a roster and organizational stance. Like if you're happy for just like trying to like fight for a wild card spot and get bounced by one of these really good AFC teams, like props to you, man. Like props to you. That's great.
Like Houston's doing it right, is what you're saying. Like hit rock bottom and then rise.
Yeah, exactly. And it's no like real detriment to like because the things Tomlin is good at like are things like intangible stuff, but like real football things has like held the Steelers back, right? Like they haven't run a real offense in 7 years. Like they're going back to the last 3 years of Ben Roethlisberger. Like this is like he does in-game clock management stuff that's like absolutely like mind-boggling. I mean, it's crazy. And the Kenny Pickett thing is even wilder because people are like, Kenny Pickett's got all these fourth quarter comebacks. Like, yeah, he's been awful for the first 3 quarters in every game. Like, so for the season,
it's amazing. Yeah, it literally only happens on the last drive. It's incredible.
For the season right now, Kenny Pickett he's completed 73% of his passes with 10.1 yards per pass attempt in the fourth quarter of all these games. In the first 3 quarters, he's last in the NFL with 57.8% completion rate, 27th in 6 yards per pass attempt. So he puts himself in all these spots to just rally back. And everyone's like, man, this dude's got alligator blood. Like you can't, it's all he does is come back. He's so clutch. Like, dude, put the team ahead.
I did a quick Google. I was curious who the NFL all-time fourth quarter comeback quarterbacks are. And I guess, I mean, like the first one's, Tom Brady, just because he's played like 1,000 years. So, yeah. I want to Big Ben Roethlisberger is third. Speak to your point of the Pittsburgh conversation. Brady, Manning, Roethlisberger, Matt Ryan, Drew Brees, Stafford. And then, of course, Johnny Unitas. Who can forget Johnny Unitas' big comebacks in the 50s. Or the 60s, whatever, 70s, 60s, 70s. All right. Rich, what do you have as far as Pittsburgh, Jacksonville, this game? Anything stand out to you in particular?
I mean, you just keep playing Travis Etienne. Leads the NFL in touches. The Steelers just allowed 130 rushing yards to Darrell Henderson and Royce Freeman. They're allowing 4.7 yards per carry to running backs. They're allowing 15.9 rushing points per game to opposing running backs. And for the first few weeks of the season, we were just kind of waiting for Etienne to like check off that last box, right? Like he was doing everything. He's caught more passes this year. He's among the league leaders in snaps at running back. He's giving you still explosives. All we needed was him to get the goal line carries, and they were pulling him for random goal line carries for Tank Bigsby. But these last 2 games, it's been all him at the goal line. So that was the last box he needed to be checked. So, I mean, yeah, you can just keep playing him for sure.
DK did not bother to change Deontay Johnson's price. He's still just $5K. That still seems too cheap. Pickens is 5.6. Was he eased in, or was he just fully unleashed as far as routes run and like participation and snaps?
He was good all the way in, just like the Cooper Kupp treatment. Like they waited till he was ready to play.
He left the game for like one series, a couple plays at one point, but yeah, he was all the way in.
Unlike Aaron Jones, who will never play a full game this year.
He'll never play football ever.
There was a third guy. Like I know Dylan got some.
Emmanuel Wilson.
Yeah. I'm like, who? I was tilting my face off. I'm like, Wilson. Who is this Wilson?
It feels the Aaron Jones thing feels almost identical to what happened with Keenan Allen last year. Like he came back re-injured, and like we went through a couple weeks where he like tried to play hurt, and like we just need him to like shut down and come back, man.
All right. Anything else of note as far as Jacksonville and Pittsburgh? Any other stats to fire away before you jump into our third game?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of know what happens with Calvin Ridley against man coverage. Like last week, even Saints play man coverage on 57% of their snaps. They've been playing at the 4th highest rate in the league. And as Rich alluded to at the beginning of the show, the Jaguars just kind of ignore Calvin Ridley when it comes to man coverage. 6 targets all year against that particular scheme. The Steelers are also a top 10 unit in man coverage, a third of their defensive snaps. So we'll have to see if they still like run Calvin Ridley just blindly from the boundary and use him more as a deep decoy. But either way, it seems like still a favorable spot for Christian Kirk now. So sure, Etienne, Christian Kirk together. If you want to play a little bit of Travis Etienne, even though he falls in that no man land of salary, but I can see myself skinny stacking this game with either him or even taking a chance on like George Pickens. Because for George Pickens' target share to stay as it was, like 30%, and also see 41% of the team's air yards, like it still takes a prayer for him to catch a Kenny Pickett deep ball. Like you need those to get there. But to have that high target share with those downfield shots, it is worth taking those chances as long as the volume sticks around.
Calvin Ridley, week 3 was 7.2K on DK. Week 4, 6.9. Week 5, 6.8. Week 6, 6.7. Week 7, 6.4. Week 8, down to 5.8. It's down to 5.8. They're dangling him. He hasn't been great, obviously. He's had his moments, not many, but a few.
Steelers have been bad to outside wide receivers. It's just the problem is his usage on the route tree. I mean, 56% of his targets are further than 10 yards downfield. 60.4% of his targets are outside the numbers. So he's, those are targets that come with low success rates. He needs to get more of that, the intermediate stuff, because those are efficiency smoothing targets and they help your floor a lot. That's why you see guys like Kirk, excelling right now in that offense, because Ridley's getting downfield attention, and he's running guys off, and it's opening things up in the offense. So Evan Ingram is second on the team in targets since week 2. He actually has fewer targets than Evan Ingram too.
How much is Evan Ingram? I don't have his price in front of
me. He's the Michael Thomas of tight ends. If you need 10 PPR points, Evan Ingram is going to get you 10 PPR points.
They always price him too. Like they don't drop his salary ever. He stays in that like 5,500 to 5,900 range.
Am I seeing he's let's see. Maybe I'm reading this wrong. I have to pull up a different page. Yeah, he's 4.5 on DK this week, Evan Ingram.
Oh, okay.
It's reasonable.
So it's he's not cheap, but he's fine. He's certainly worth a look. I guess he's
what's his Draftkings game log look like? It's gotta be like 9 to 12 PPR points every single week.
9-5, 11-1, 6-8, 12-9, 13-7, 11-7, 9-9. So it's very concise.
we could get the Evan Ingram and Michael Thomas together.
If you want to finish in like the 51 percentile,
cash. You just want to hit the cash line, dude.
Shooting them in cash for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Last game amongst the 3 that we're going to feature. Let's talk about it in just a second. Do want to mention NBA DFS? It is back. It's actually opening night as we record. Wembanyama's taking the court momentarily. Super excited about that. NBA DFS, it's back. The amazing suite of premium offerings here at RotoGrinders, that's also available as well. For a limited time, you can lock in a full season of NBA Premium, $50 discount. Everything from the lineup HQ access with up-to-the-minute premium projections as well as ownership. If you like to play in the prize pick streets or the underdog streets, we have a fantasy pick'em tool which will help you pick the most optimal, the best, the most likely things to hit. Check out the link in the description for more information if you want to check it out. $50 current discount on the NBA Premium package. And by the way, just a heads up, we do we're always doing shows here on the channel, RotoGrinders. Earlier today, we were doing Grinders Live, 5 o'clock on the East Coast, taking you all the way up the lock, talking NBA. That's one show. That's one sport. You got to be on top of things because the slate can absolutely flip on its head, if certain players are ruled out, as happens very, very often in NBA. And the adjust conversation is always fun. Kansas City at Denver. Denver's getting 7.5 points at home versus the Chiefs. 46 is the total here, Rich. Hey, we were doing backflips as far as, or people, if you had Mark Andrews last week, you felt great about it until, Travis Kelce pulled the old hold my beer, and it was absolutely outrageous. Just an incredible performance from Travis Kelce. I was told he was old and broken a couple weeks ago. I guess not. He's perfectly fine. He's spectacular. And maybe if somebody to double a tight end, Andrews and Kelce, that could have been kind of fun.
I think the Millie Maker won it was double tight end, right?
Was it? I didn't see it.
Yeah, it was Kelce Andrews, and the cash game swap was getting off Cooper Kupp to Travis Kelce. I did not budge. I held my ground because I wanted Cooper Kupp over Kelce, and I lost that battle in a hard way.
Yeah, I mean, you could obviously that's the 99th percentile outcome of what Kelce did last week. You couldn't really see that coming, but
still hurt.
That was for sure. It hurts just the same.
And Kupp went the actual opposite way too. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's just how it goes sometimes. Hey, this is why DFS, we care about today and today only. Clean slate on Sunday. We'll try to get all over. Its scores are 0-0. So how much are we prioritizing Kelce? On a Wednesday, it's hard to know, right, Rich, as far as what kind of value will be out there where we can sort of justify paying up for Kelce. And the rest of the Kansas City offense, what are you seeing as far as the Chiefs?
Yeah, I mean, I mix in some Kelsey in tournaments with him, but maybe it's just I just have such a hard time paying his price always, and he's been so dominant still. But man, I mean, he's got 100 yards receiving in the first half of the last 2 games. Like, literally got the bonus for halftime the last 2 weeks. He's got 30 more expected fantasy points than the next closest tight end since he's come back. It's just that the gap is wide again, but you have to pay the price on it. It's always crazy, which when you see like that 3K gap, it's like, well, I could just play Mark Andrews and use like for 3K to go somewhere else. But he really is still the only reliable pass catcher on a weekly basis you can count on. We are still getting the slow simmer of Rashee Rice. We saw him, get up to 64.5% of the team routes last week. He's literally the only guy. Well, we had an MVS touchdown too, but he's really the only kind of consistent Chiefs wide receiver. We just need him to get more overall usage, but it's literally Kelsey every week.
Season high target for MVS. Looks like he had 5 targets last week. I thought it was maybe just like a one and done. He got it.
Congratulations,
one target,
MVS. You reached 5 targets.
Now we have to have the update, Rich. You're always on top of this. Is he still number 1 or the worst, depending on how you look at it, as far as balls thrown his way, target percentage amongst a certain number of qualifiers?
I'll have to see if he earned some targets, because I know I'll have to double check, because I know the guy we talked about in the first game was gaining ground. It was Mr. Alec Pierce.
Yeah,
so I'll find out for you. I'll look it up as Daigle waxed poetically about whatever Bronco he's going to sell us on here.
So I felt like I was bullied by the Chiefs first half, not even that full game against the Chargers. I felt like the first 2 quarters ended me so bad in tournaments that I thought, okay, I guess I have to talk about the Chiefs every week now. But the issue is that it could be the same thing that what happened to the Chargers, that the Chiefs defense is just too damn good for anyone to push back. I mean, dude, no one has scored more than 3 offensive touchdowns against them since week 1, whenever they didn't have Kelsey or Chris Jones to begin with. Like, this defense is just running rampant right now. Russell Wilson also, we're only 2 weeks removed from him having his worst game of the season, 95 yards and 2 picks against this Chiefs defense. Not only that, but honestly, like, he's lost his lust the last 2 games too. Like, he's just turned back into a pumpkin, 5.5 yards per attempt. He is averaging his most rushing yards per game and quite a bit. But even then, it's not enough to get there in this offense. So it's just a mess right now. I just felt like we had to talk about some of the pieces because, the Chiefs forced my hand. 2 quarters of the Chiefs forced my hand.
Yeah, that goes back to last year. I mean, the back third of last year, they were a really excellent defense once that secondary got healthy. Update: MVS did get out of the cellar. I don't know if this is we would put an asterisk next to it because Olamide Zacchaeus is there now, but like now they've got Julio Jones. I don't know if he should qualify. Then you've got Randall Cobb, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and Jalen Hyde is there too, although hopefully he's trending up as well.
I think Donovan Peoples-Jones, like, beat reporters were talking about him getting replaced by Marquise Goodwin soon too. Not that matters. I was looking at all this, just finishing my breakdowns before the show. And Dean, right now, the bottom 3 quarterbacks in completion rate against cover 3 zone coverage are all Browns quarterbacks. It is DJ Walker, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, Deshaun Watson, like all in a row there.
Man, what a mess that is as far as Cleveland and the Watson situation. And man, we knew something was been weird for like weeks now, and just the whole thing is, I don't know, it's just getting odder and odder. And
he got steamed a little bit last week too, because that total was increasing. And to be fair, they combined for over 75 points. So sure, but it wasn't because of the offenses.
I mean, I made some Brown stacks late in the week because I make every time the Colts play on the main slate, I make a game stack around that game. So I was like, oh, Amari Cooper might actually finally do something. Nope, that didn't happen.
I did the same.
I had Elijah Moore and my single entry core, and it's just like, man, those targets are so useless, so shallow and so useless every single week.
But Dean, an update. So I rolled the dice and had the Colts for my pick a loser game.
Okay.
And I won. It got down to me and just one other person already in week 7, and we just split it. So but I had picked the Colts.
It's over?
Yeah, it's over already. Because
how many started?
The core picked the Patriots. The Patriots knocked out like literally everyone but 2 people last week. And the Vikings. The Vikings and Patriots like knocked out like the remaining people. And I picked the Colts and one person had the Cardinals. And I was saving the Cardinals. I was clutching them. And the whole time that I thought the Browns were going to lose, like, this game's over. And then the refs were like, you can have this win, Cleveland. And I was like, cool, I'll take it too.
Which format do you prefer? The pick a loser or the survivor?
Pick a loser for sure.
It's much tougher because like you can't just pick on Arizona every single week.
Yeah, exactly. Especially early in the season where you don't know kind of which teams are really bad or good. Like at this point of the season, like the Cardinals, we found out like who they are. And we'll see if stuff changes with Kyler Murray when he comes back. But like we've got a good idea, like a few of these teams, like really how bad they are. Whereas early in the season you don't, and you can kind of you have to choose at that point. So like if you want to use the Texans, like do you burn them or do you save them? Right? Like do you use the Cardinals? Do you use any of these other bad teams?
I lucked out last week. I tried to go against, when those are zigging, I was zagging, and it kind of worked out in my favor because the league I was in is like 1,000 people, and it's down like 200 because a lot of people took some duds last week. But I took Detroit. I said you got to pick these teams at some point. And I thought Baltimore at home. Like I was looking at Detroit's schedule. I'm like, this seems like a spot where they're going to lose. I think they're going to lose like 38 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And then I took the Chargers. So
great call.
I'm still alive. Yeah, Detroit was my reach last week.
The Eagles did restore our faith, though, that the NFC can maybe punch back just a little bit against the AFC. Just a little bit.
Well, we talked about it on the show last week about the Lions schedule and like who they had played for last month. And that's why we weren't scared of Lamar. And that's why I was so disappointed when we got to Sunday. And I was like, oh, everyone's playing Lamar. So,
yeah. I just didn't expect him to come in as high rostered on DK. I knew on FanDuel doubles were easy to get to. But I just didn't expect everyone to play, or most people to play, the tight end doubles with Kelsey, Andrews, and Lamar.
I know we don't expect a lot of fun with the NFL. With the Halloween is the trade deadline. There's some rumors out there on like Jerry Jeudy, and I don't even know how much fun that would be. Like trading for Jerry Jeudy, kind of a, I don't know, mid receiver, whatever you want to say. Derrick Henry possibly might get traded because why not? Tennessee, what's the point? You might as well get rid of him because you're going nowhere anyway. Who's the most likely guy? Or Richard is going to tell me it's not going to happen, so what's the point? Because this just doesn't happen.
I mean, you never know. Chris McCaffrey got traded last year at the trade deadline, so the Titans should trade Derrick Henry. I know that they should trade DeAndre Hopkins. Will they?
What could you get for Derrick Henry?
Who cares?
I think
he's a free agent.
Yeah,
are they re-signing him?
I wouldn't think so. Yeah, maybe a 5th rounder. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I have no idea.
I would imagine like a 4th or something. Like you ain't getting probably a day 2 pick for him.
Baltimore, where would he go?
Definitely not for Hopkins. But
who's trading for him?
But Hopkins had a little juice a couple weeks ago. I think Hopkins could still help a couple teams out. The Derrick Henry one is just more troubling. It's like what team wants to give up assets for a running back that's already good, right? Like what team needs. And the Ravens are like the one team you can kind of talk yourself into. But does Derrick Henry just slow them down? Because when you have a back that's unique like Derrick Henry, like he like shapes kind of what your offense wants to do. And the Ravens have kind of moved away from that. Like they're playing more 11 personnel than they ever did. They're playing faster. So like, yeah, Derrick Henry's better than Gus Edwards and he's better than Justice Hill, but like, does he transform that offense? Like, and then you can just say, well, like it's never bad to add a good player. There's like a lot of different dynamics and nuances to it, but he's kind of unique. DeAndre Hopkins, I think, could help a few teams out though.
You got anything else as far as John, as players that might get traded, or do you want to talk about your favorite Bronco to run back for KC? Not that you have to run it back.
We're still trying to talk about this game. I forgot.
Well, I was tying it to Jerry Jeudy, basically. Oh, Mims finally got a little boost, right? As far as some route participation. But excited about that?
He's still poor man's Rashee Rice. We talked about that last week, where like he went up to 44%. And in this offense, a 44% route rate isn't going to get you anywhere. Also, negative rushing yards as they try to get him involved more. 3rd most on the team among their wide receivers in routes run, but still not enough. The only reason like really we're waiting for is picking up in redraft leagues and then hoping Jerry Jeudy gets traded somewhere. And I'm actually not sure the Broncos have received calls. I think the reports are they're calling teams because no one is calling them about Jerry Jeudy, which makes sense. So who knows what we're going to get, but I still think it's too thin. I will say that was, 18 touches for Javonte Williams. That was a season high mark. It was also the best he's looked all year. Like he actually looked explosive as well. I don't know if you want to run a running back here into this Chiefs defense, but honestly, that may be your best bet right now. Cortland Sutton is averaging 5 more fantasy points per game, although the Chiefs are still pretty much locking down receivers, both from the boundary and the slot. So I don't know. It's thin. I just felt like we should talk about the Chiefs more than anything.
How much does like how good the Chiefs defense being and the combination of like how, I don't know, mediocre Denver's offense is, how much does that kill the ceiling of the Chiefs, right? Because how many points do they actually have to put up for this, to be threatened that they're going to lose this game? Obviously it's the NFL, goofy things happen all the time, but it's just, is the defense for Kansas City, holding down the ceiling, the possible ceiling for the Kansas City offense? Does that make sense? Is the question I'm asking?
I mean, still, if the team's going to score, I mean, we've seen that a couple weeks ago against Denver. In that game, there was a little bit of weather stuff, but like they didn't have to really keep their foot on the gas. So,
yeah,
we saw that against the Chargers too, where again it was 2 quarters. Go back.
But that's why Pacheco's been a little better, and he's not been running well, but the touches have been there, and it's given him a path for more touches because they are able to kind of run a little bit at the end of these games. They're not just jailbreak situations like they were on some of these other Chiefs previously teams where their defenses weren't as good.
Anything to read in as far as Hardman, by the way? I saw somebody in chat mention Hardman, and yeah, Hardman back here for Kansas City, or nothing of notes to get excited about here, Rich. I'm guessing it's
my thought process was that they wanted to replace what they lost at Richie James, and that's kind of what he was. The kick returner got on the field for a few routes, but I think when they lost Richie James, like that, they were kind of just looking to replace that.
All right. Anything else as far as Kansas City, Denver, or is that's it? I think that's it. Yes. I mean, Pacheco again gets the usage. Doesn't really hurt you. He does have at least 3 targets in 4 of his last 5 games, so getting a little more reception volume as well. But it really just comes down to do you need him? Because I think what's happening is people are playing him more for his salary and in cash games for his usage more so than his ceiling, which, just like we talked about last week with last week's running backs, it was easy to eliminate and whittle down our pool because you just ask who beats you. Josh Jacobs still getting rostered every single week, and we're so far removed from being scared of Josh Jacobs at anything over 5%. So yeah, that's just kind of what we're doing again with Pacheco here.
Also, the Titans don't automatically, they can get a comp pick for Derrick Henry if they do let him go in free agency, but they also it restricts them from really signing anyone too. You can also negate comp picks that you are given. So it just still makes sense that they do, if they can get something, they should trade for him. Obviously now you're gonna take a 6th or 7th, but they just don't automatically get that comp pick. Like they can still negate comp picks with their own free agent signings themselves. All right. Well, I hope something interesting happens. But like you say, Rich, most of the time, unfortunately, it doesn't. Probably because salary cap reasons. But yeah, his salary probably makes it the hardest. That's what I figure kind of mucks it up. But we'll see. Stay tuned. Maybe they'll eat some of it, though. Like they ate some of Bayard's. But I would be surprised still if it happened. Yeah. Well, I think Tennessee kind of is conceding, though. They pretty much understand. Tannehill supposedly on the block as well. I don't really know. I get, would Tannehill help the Jets enough where it matters the trade for him? Is there a team where you can say, well, if only Tannehill was on? I don't know. No, because if you're a team like the Jets, what are you even getting? What's the plan to lose in the first round? Yeah. Tannehill, are you winning 3 games versus Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson? It's the same thing we talked about with the Steelers, right? Cool. If that's the plan, if that's the goal, is to not have a losing season, to just tread water, cool. Then there's nothing wrong with that, right? Punch your ticket. But you aren't beating all of those quarterbacks 3 games in a row, with Ryan Tannehill. You're using logic and reason, but you remember, Rich, when we jumped on this show, producer Steve is a big New York Knicks fan, and he was sweating his Knicks, and I'm like, he's like, I can't believe it. Well, they're terrible. It's the same dumb team they had last year. What do you expect? And it's they're not going anywhere. If they beat Boston tonight, good for them. They're still not going anywhere. I guess you can have a fun 24 hours or so. But and the fan base they don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear the I get it. Maybe that's I'm just not my. I don't have. You're right. Fandom. I don't have the fandom gene in me anymore. I can't blindly just pursue these types of terrible angles. Yeah, I'm all about tanking when it makes sense. For basketball last year, I was yelling. I'm not saying anyone has to tank. I'm just saying Ryan Tannehill ain't the answer.
The question is, who is like the 32nd best quarterback in the NFL? That maybe the answer is Ryan Tannehill.
And I get it. Like the Jets have a great defense, they do, but like Ryan Tannehill, like you're still not going in with Ryan Tannehill beating. Like you might win one of those games, right? Like just through variance and as good as your defense is, but like you ain't winning 3 in a row against the really good quarterbacks.
All right, let's talk about our favorite quarterbacks we've not yet mentioned. Before we do that, we do want to mention more memories are made when you're there for live NFL action. If you want to watch Ryan Tannehill in person, and when you need tickets, Ticketmaster, they got you covered at the official Ticketmaster, the official marketplace of the NFL. Ticketmaster, they give you more ways to find your perfect seats. Their interactive seat map gives you 360-degree previews of your section to make sure you have the best view for those pivotal plays. And if your plans happen to change, Ticketmaster, they got you covered. More flexibility to sell or transfer your tickets. Plus, mobile tickets, they make getting in on game day a breeze. You can even customize your Ticketmaster app to rep your favorite team's colors. Find Ticketmaster today. Tickets at Ticketmaster today at Ticketmaster.com/NFL. All right, John, what quarterbacks have we not yet talked about that are worth talking about? And speaking of Jets and quarterbacks, I mean, how cheap do they have to make a quarterback to? I just want to start with this because Sam Darnold it might be Sam. I don't want to say it's Sam Darnold season. It might be Sam Darnold week. I'm curious. He's 4-3. He's 4-3 on DK. We're assuming it looks like Purdy and concussion protocol. The way things have played out this year, like basically, it seems very likely he's not going to play. Is that? Should we talk about this?
Yeah,
Sam Darnold.
You got to, I guess. I mean, same thing. I saw someone in the chat ask about Kareem Hunt. We kind of probably talk about that backfield too, even though it could be a trap.
I haven't wrapped my head around Sam Darnold yet. I know I want to play Christian McCaffrey, but he's probably also going to be rostered, especially if Darnold's under center. Rich, do you have thoughts?
Darnold was really good last year when he played at the back half of the year. Like he was 5th in the NFL in fantasy points per dropback. He was 2nd in yards per pass attempt. Like he was effective. It's a $4,300 quarterback in a Kyle Shanahan offense.
Probably where it stops. Yeah.
So like there is probably some value. I mean, it's the same thing. Like look at the Brock Purdy discourse, right? Like look at the last 3 weeks of Brock Purdy. Sam Darnold, he's 26 years old. He has pedigree. He's 4,300. He's going to be throwing passes to Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle. That's why I don't know, man. That's really all I got.
Yeah.
And maybe that's all you need. That's the thing.
It's a game too where it could be ugly though, right? Because like the big question mark with that game is like, we still don't know what the hell the Bengals are. Right? Because everyone's talking about Joe Burrow. Like Joe Burrow's had one good game and it came against the Arizona Cardinals. Immediately the week after, he had a good first quarter against the Seahawks, but then threw for 185 yards. Like, what if that game is ends up in the low 20s and it's not that good? So there's that angle of it too. We don't know what version of the Bengals we're gonna get. I have no idea what Joe Burrow is gonna look like come out of this bye. Right? They talked about already. They're gonna play more under center. They haven't played under center at all since he's been hurt, since he's come back from that calf injury. The last couple weeks, when it looked like that week he was going to play right against the Rams, everyone's like, oh, he's not going to play. He played, just took every drop back in center. He's been in shotguns ever since, and they've talked about playing more traditional offense. So it sounds like he's more healthy, but doesn't matter. He's been so bad anyways. All his peripheral stats are so bad. He's last in the NFL in air yards per completed pass. He's last in the NFL in yards per completed pass. He's last in the NFL in completion rate on throws 10 yards or further downfield. I don't know what we're going to get. I just don't know what we're going to get out of the Bengals offense.
He's not going to get played this week. We can say that against that San Fran defense. I assume he's not going to get played. Lamar versus Arizona, for sure. Obviously, that looks like a great play. Hurts against Washington. Washington gives up a lot of big plays, and AJ Brown. We'll talk about him, I'm sure, at some point.
I wonder how much Lamar drowns out Jalen Hurts too. That's kind of where I'm at.
The injury that Hurts had.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah,
I'm still willing to play him though. I mean,
Oh
that was
yeah,
the
he doesn't. You don't need to run against the Commanders. And Daigle, talked about it a couple weeks ago with Ritter, and Tyrod was QB6 last week.
Yeah, I would say Tyrod definitely got there.
They scored 14 points, and he was still QB6 because the Commanders just give up big plays, man. The passing game.
Do we assume the tush push is still a thing? Whatever Hurts is dealing with, like we assume that's not going to be hindered, or maybe it'll be hindered.
Yeah, probably just you won't see like the scrambling stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, he played with a brace in the second half, right? He came back with a brace on.
And the beat reporters were only mad though because like that tush push in the fourth quarter ended the game, so that's why now everyone is raising their pitchforks trying to get it banned forever, all because it happened against their team.
Yeah, I don't know. Do we have any hot takes on that? As far it's a football play.
First of all, the regular base QB sneak has like a 90% success rate anyways. Like no one's ever clamored for that to like go away. So whatever.
Yeah, and also like stop it. And in other teams, it's pretty clear that like
listen, don't let them get to a yard away. Yeah,
there you go.
I will stick with my opinion that like it probably takes at most 30 minutes of one practice to give like Christian McCaffrey snaps under center to run the tush push.
But I will say what happened to
quarterback out, you're running back in the position instead.
But what happened to Purdy on Monday is like the one way like you could start to see like something get changed in the rules because he got hurt basically on the same play and got hit in the head. Mm-hmm. So like if people say that because like what happens, like people can just come in and tee off on your quarterback. But I mean, you got to take injury. Like it's a sound play. Don't let the Eagles get to a yard away, man. And first of all, anyone else can do it. Like Sirianni even talked about it. I don't even really love Sirianni. Like, dude, anyone else can run it. We're seeing all these other teams try to do it and they can't do it.
You got to take there, Rich, as far as Lamar versus Hurts. They're basically the same price.
I probably still like Hurts the most just because there's more chance for like a pushback, right? Like, but I don't have a problem with Lamar either. But I mean, I love Lamar. I love playing guys against the Cardinals. Matthew Stafford's the only quarterback this year that hasn't scored more fantasy points than what he was averaging going into the game against the Cardinals. So
it's a good stat. Dak, any interest in Dak? Cowboys are kind of popping and things I'm looking at versus the Rams.
I couldn't get that game. So there was a lot of meta talk within my head of trying to pick the third game because like I didn't want to get to the Cowboys Rams either because it could be so ugly. One, the Cowboys just aren't fun to talk about. Like they're just such a boring team to watch. Also Stafford, his issues under pressure, and now we get the Cowboys are missing like Leighton Vander Esch too. But Stafford has been, and we talked about it a little bit last week too, if the Steelers' pressure got there. Stafford has been an entirely different quarterback under pressure this year. So even without Vander Esch, I still worry against this Cowboys defense. I think that total probably comes under. So I know Dak pops in the models, but that's one I saw, and I was like, I just don't think so.
Rich, you got anybody else to throw into the conversation as far as quarterbacks you're looking at this week?
No, I think I'm probably just going to gravitate around Hurts Lamar. And then, I mean, like I said, it's going to be like interesting to see. I haven't tried to build out, like do some dummy stuff with Darnold yet. But like if later on in the week we see like there's just certain plays I have to have and Darnold gets me there, like because it used to be a thing on DraftKings, right? Before we got all these mobile guys that could throw. It was what we did on DraftKings. Like when Kyle Allen was 4,300, remember, like, dude, jamming him in. We are punching him in. We're getting David Johnson in this lineup. We're getting Antonio Brown in this lineup. We're getting Christian McCaffrey in this lineup. Who gives a shit? But now that we've got these quarterbacks that have like these ceilings that are really hard to combat because they can get you the rushing bonus, they can get you the passing bonus. It's really tough. That's what's kind of broke that meta in DFS. So I don't know. It's an interesting spot. 4,300 for a guy that has
no Dolphins, but like the rest of the guys are here, like Travis Kelce, Christian McCaffrey, AJ Brown, like Cooper Kupp, like everyone else is here. So that's kind of what makes Darnold interesting. Yeah.
It used to be a thing because like Peyton Manning can only hurt you so badly, right? He has to go like 404 to really crush you and punish you. Now, like you said, Rich, like there's different routes. where you can.
I mean,
just,
Lamar had 10 rushing points last week, and he threw for 360 yards.
He looks so good too, man. He looks
like,
so
what are you supposed to do with that with a pocket passer, right? Like, I'm gonna play my pocket passer and like be thrilled that he got me to 20, right? Like,
running backs. I guess we should have a CMC conversation, and like, yeah, CMC in a pairing with Darnold, I guess he'll catch a fair bit of passes. And then you sort of think about defensively. Yeah. Well, I guess you're talking about that, John, right? As far as pairing CMC with Darnold, possibly.
Oh, yeah. CMC can catch passes. That is true. Not only that, but clearly not injured. All but one touch this past game, returning, and got stuffed because, running against the gosh, that already slipped my mind. What a long week. I can't remember who they played. No success on the ground, though. Whatever. He still got there. But
Minnesota.
Thank you. Yes, Minnesota, who's been good against the run, except against DeAndre Swift. But the fact that, yes, he's clearly healthy. And also, like, it's the Bengals' run defense. You can also just sell yourself on that because they are allowing the highest rate of 10-yard runs against them. So either way, you want to play cheap Darnold, stack him with Christian McCaffrey. You want to go to Brandon Ayuk as well, you can go there. We saw the splits continue for George Kittle if you want to pay up at tight end and down from Travis Kelce without Deebo Samuel this past week. So sure, there are a number of ways to go, but Christian McCaffrey, whether it's with Darnold or not, I think is an amazing play for that reason. Kareem Hunt, we talked about a little bit. I think what happened, and maybe we'll see if we even get a full practice from Kareem Hunt. It would change my opinion if we don't. But like we talked about with Jahmyr Gibbs, I think the game plan is to feature Kareem Hunt if he gets a full practice, if he's at full strength. We saw he was a true game time decision last week. That's why a lot of people got to Jerome Ford, who just ended you immediately if you didn't play him in tournaments with that 60-yard touchdown run. But what happened after Jerome Ford was injured was Pierre Strong out touched Kareem Hunt 5-2, but Kareem Hunt came in on the goal line. I think that only happened because Kareem Hunt was seriously injured, and they weren't planning on using him anyways, but they had to. So if Kareem Hunt logs a full practice, I would definitely go back to him in this spot for sure. And then if you want the pivot, it's not pretty. But if you want the pivot off Lamar, you're paying down at running back. I mean, here's Gus Edwards against a very bad Cardinals run defense. And so we saw last week that that's the player they lean on when they're up by at least 7 points. And we expect that to be the game script here. Keaton Mitchell also banged up. We'll see if he plays. So they may be down to just 2 running backs naturally again. So just someone else to get to on FanDuel in particular.
That's the old leverage play. But I just realized Sam Darnold playing on a Halloween weekend. He normally sees Ghost on just standard weekends. You got to figure maybe Inky and Blinky will be out there in the Cincinnati secondary. Who knows? Rich, what do you have as far as some running backs for us?
I think on both sites we'll see Breece Hall be the most popular play. Obviously, the last time we seen him, he had the only top 5 scoring week against the Eagles defense that they've allowed to a running back. He closed going with 71% and 77% of the backfield touches right before bye. He also ran a route on a season high 60% of dropbacks. And, with Breece Hall, you're talking about explosives, right? Explosive runs. I mean, he's 4th in the NFL in yardage to come off of runs that are 10 or more yards. The Giants are 31st in the NFL in allowing explosive runs. So, I mean, that's just going to be kind of a match kind of made in heaven kind of there. And his price is just really soft on both sites. FanDuel's been pretty proactive on pricing, but even 7.2 is pretty light on where he's at. And he's 5'9". Yeah. He's 5'9" on DraftKings. Like, absolutely bonkers price there. Tony Pollard is interesting to me only because we finally seen the Cowboys. So before the bye, the Cowboys going to that Monday night game against the Chargers, they didn't run one single play in the second half all season within 7 points of either direction. Like, they didn't have any games in neutral game script, like, at all. And we finally seen them play a game in neutral game script, and we kind of see Tony Pollard check off all the boxes we wanted to see. At 88% of the backfield touches, probably could have had a touchdown on a wheel route. The only thing is like the rushing efficiency hasn't really been there for him, but the Rams are a team that have allowed combo backs to really kind of beat them up. I mean, DeAndre Swift had 108 yards against them, McCaffrey 135. So like there's an opening there for him as well. And like no man's land. If like he ends up being the odd man out of like that nebulous pricing zone because ETN just looks objectively better. People want to get the Breece Hall. We want to play Christian McCaffrey. Like if he ends up being like the low owned guy by the time we get to the weekend, then he becomes interesting.
Yeah, from what I'm seeing now, it looks like he's going to be reasonably popular. And that's the tricky thing because Pollard's not been nearly as efficient as he was in seasons past. It's just Daigle, what do you have as far as this Rams defense? I know we talked about it basically top of the season. It's like it's Aaron Donald and the John Travolta gift, like standing around looking around for anybody else that's competent defensively. But have they been okay? Have they exceeded expectations? I know collectively as a team, it feels like they have. How is this Rams defense? Can we get a big Pollard game versus them?
I don't have the Rams running back stats off the top of my head. Reeves, do you have them on your end?
Like the defensive stats?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, they're 21st in yards per carry allowed to running backs. I mean, they just allowed both Jalen Warren and Najee Harris to find the paint. But like I said, mostly the combo backs that have really beat them up, like Swift and McCaffrey, that kind of make it more appealing from like a matchup side. But it also could be a situation too where the Cowboys, like their defense does work, and then you don't have another neutral game script game, and Rico Dowdle's out here getting carries in the fourth quarter.
Are we done with Joe Mixon, at least for this week? I'm just
and I told it. And listen, moratorium on Josh Jacobs again too. We talked about it last week. Like when Josh Jacobs was checking to be popular, and I was like, this looks exactly like Joe Mixon every week, where people are going to talk themselves into Josh Jacobs, and it's the same thing. Like these guys that are getting touches, I get it, but they're not cheap enough, like to play those touches.
Is DeMarcado cheap enough? Is he the clear one now for Arizona? If you want to run back in that that Baltimore Arizona game. I know we'll probably talk about Brown and his revenge game, and maybe a tight end possibly as well. But is he worth a look here, John? What are you saying as far as DeMarcado?
Yeah, to up his usage that much, and remember 2 weeks ago, like at least I told myself the process was right since he led the team in routes run, or he led their running backs and routes run and snaps. I was like, okay, the process was right despite getting only 2 touches. But then to be up to get everything. 93% of the team's running back carries, 95% of their running back touches, all but one. They just eliminated Keontae Ingram from the offense altogether. I would imagine everyone in their Lamar stacks will probably use Trey McBride since he's so cheap on both sides. But sure, I think DeMarcado under 5K, certainly worth playing since we know he's going, we at least assume now, since he's done it in back-to-back games, he's going to lead their running backs in routes run. That's all I care about in a negative game script.
Bijan feels like an interesting troll play, a flop lag play. He's down to 6K on DK, which, a lot of people are angry at him. They got burned at him last week, whatever the whole situation is. But,
which was weird because it wasn't even objectively a good spot for Bijan. It was really, it was weird that people were got burned on that.
They were, they were more upset about their redraft teams, right? Like start sit situation.
Now he was a popular, I think, tournament guy too.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
I think also part of it is one of the sites, one of the pick'em sites where Fanduel or DK,
it was Underdog. I think Underdog, his thing was 0.5 yards. So he was the free bet. And the weirdest thing was that whole situation, because if he's sick and he doesn't play, so be it. If it, whatever, they probably should have reported it. But then he got that carry at the end of the game. It was what's happening?
That was them starting to build a defense, right? They knew the league was going to come at him. Let's give him a carry. Otherwise, it made no sense, right?
It was really weird. It was just a weird situation, man. He played 11 snaps and he was kind of out there, and then they just gave him a carry at the end of the game to set up that field goal. It was just out of nowhere.
I just think 6K Bijan, again, if we're going to go back, he was 7-8 on week 3.
But he was overpriced for his role. So Bijan is interesting because even while he was having some production, his share of backfield touches and his usage never matched where he was priced, where for his peers were. He's only had one game where he got over 70% of the backfield touches. He's getting pulled. He was getting pulled inside the 5. So you were still paying top dollar for a guy that didn't have the same boxes checked as guys that he was priced around. Now he's kind of where he probably should be.
As Houston is trading away pieces, are they becoming more vulnerable on the as far as defensively on the run specifically?
No, they traded Kevin Byron, I think.
Oh, the secondary piece.
Yeah, and they're getting Tier Tart back. Tier Tart is he's practicing, so Tart's coming back this week.
That's the guy we're afraid of, right? That's their best defensive.
He's
stopper.
the interior defensive tackle. They have a few guys though defensively that they could probably trade, Autry, it could help some people out a lot. Like he's a guy that they could move. Like I know that doesn't excite you for like the fun stuff happening, but
that's not fun to me. Yeah. All right. Running backs, anything else of notes, or shall we talk about some receivers?
We're just
All
waiting
right,
on injuries
receiver.
because like we may lose. I mean, everyone's questionable this week. It's all over the place. Like, it's only Wednesday, but then we even had some DMPs from Tyreek and Mostert. So we're just kind of waiting on everyone.
Yeah, it's tough with the Wednesday stuff when we record this to know how serious to take situations. Obviously, Tua's commentary was what kind of made it ominous for everyone on the Tyreek stuff. Like where he was like, we'll get Tyreek back eventually. And it was like, wait a second. What? It's not what we want to hear, man.
All right. Let's talk about some receivers. Rich, you start us off. What receivers shall we focus on? Shall we mention?
Yeah,
I threw out AJ Brown earlier. Like it feels like an incredible spot for him. But go ahead.
And I don't know if it's just because we have the full slate, but it feels like, we named more running backs than we have in previous weeks. And I feel like receivers, like it's deep. Obviously, I won't even sell like the AJ Brown stuff because anyone can do it with the Commanders too. I think probably the more interesting piece is, do you go back and do doubles with Devontae Smith? Because Devontae Smith also in that game against the Commanders, he's only had one game the past 4 weeks where he's been a top 40 scoring wide receiver, the past 5 weeks, that is, and it was against the Commanders. He had the 9 targets. He had 7 for 76, which isn't like amazing, but like if we can get 9 plus Devontae Smith targets in this matchup too, like he becomes interesting because it opens up the path for doubles in a game where we don't believe Hurts is probably going to be as mobile as he's been either.
Your thoughts on that, John?
Yeah, Devonta Smith is in my pool. Again, Jalen Hurts is at the top of mine, if only because for recency bias, I think Lamar is going to come in heavily. And Lamar can definitely still beat us, can beat Jalen Hurts in a vacuum. But that's why I'm so heavy on Eagle stacks this week in particular. Everyone's going to play AJ Brown anyways, but
yeah,
definitely.
Especially if Tyreek's out. Like,
Yeah, so Tyreek is questionable, and I guess Waddle came back last game, so I assume he's fine. Or I don't know if he's practicing this week or not just yet, but I didn't realize Miami potentially was. We'll see. It's against.
It's Wednesday. We'll let everyone sort that out and go crazy the rest of the week.
Yeah, I don't like to get too far into the weeds and stuff like that. Is there still is Kendrick Bourne kind of sort of somewhat real? Speaking of the Dolphins, maybe a potential run back for New England if you're looking for a run back there. John, are we chasing Kendrick Bourne? 4.7, his price get bumped up a little bit more. I guess we kind of need Juju to go away, and I don't know why they hasn't Bourne kind of just earned his role now.
Well, anyone who had him in redraft or played him in DFS from weeks 2 through 5 don't think he earned a role. It wasn't pretty for that stretch. But these past 2 games, one without Demario Douglas, the other without Juju. It has been Kendrick Bourne here for 35% and 23% target share, standing out above the other.
Only
players.
12% of the team air yards over that span, though. He's averaging 1.9 air yards per target the past 2 weeks.
That's amazing.
He has 1 target further than 7 yards downfield on those 18 targets. Pretty wild.
It does kind of fit the way the Dolphins played them in the first game, though, where they just kind of kept everything underneath them. But also that could be just another, 24-17 unsexy game for fantasy, especially if there are just numerous injuries on the other side of the ball. So Kendrick Bourne priced up, may be interesting. I don't know. We'll see what else opens up. I also like Drake London, going back to him if everyone else wants to go to the running game in a negative game script, because Drake London's opportunity hasn't been an issue since week 1 when everyone panicked from that 5.5% target share. He's now seen 23% of the team's targets in 4 consecutive games and 5 of his last 6. And the boundary is where the Titans have been exploited the most. 9th in yards per catch, 10th in receiving yards per game from out wide. So I like Drake London too. Any run back.
Are you worried about the volume there though with Levis? Because we seen the old Falcons come back last week. It was back to where the target shares looked good, but they only threw 25 passes, so everyone got capped.
So my view of it is that you're probably not going to run on the Titans anyways. We talked about this with T.R. Tart, and so I'm just trying to
snip that.
No, that's true. That is true. So I don't know. I'll have to think about it, but he still may stand out.
I had him as a loose fringe guy, but I was a little bit looking at what happened last week because we talked about it coming into last week where London was, and Kyle Pitts had shown some signs of life too, was that the pass volume was so far up that it's all right, now these target shares really matter that we keep talking about every week. And then last week they went back through 25 times, and they also played Kyle Pitts at wide receiver last week instead of tight end, and he's like, so like he drew all the coverage from like actual defensive backs. So like Arthur was just like, we're still not out of the way of him yet.
And I'm not even saying like I don't care for fantasy. Like you run your team however the hell you want. Our job is to view what you do and then analyze it that way, project based on what you're doing. But it is like malpractice. It's literally egregious that they're drafting these players in the first round and that he's just not using them or using them incorrectly. Like anyone who has a fantasy team can use them better than Arthur Smith is. That's the part where I get upset.
I mean, the Kyle Pitts thing is very frustrating, and it's not even me trying to go to bat really for Kyle Pitts because I know a lot of people talk like. But you look at it, so like lined up out wide, he's averaging almost a half yard less than he does lined up in the slot or at traditional tight end, which is very rarely. And it's like, dude, we're just gonna throw you outside where dudes like Jamel Dean and can guard you instead of creating a mismatch with what the things you're good at, like we did for the previous 2 weeks, right? It's
incredible.
It's just crazy stuff, man. Because we saw Jonnu finally die because they only threw 25 times, like that little dream. But it's a Jonnu revenge game though this week.
Is he vengeful? Do we know how vengeful is Jonnu Smith? How did they leave? They leave on good terms or bad terms? I'm not sure. Got to investigate that for sure.
He got a bunch of money from the Patriots. He should have been happy.
The 5K area is pretty interesting on DK. Just kind of running through like Marquise Brown is 5'2". Man, Watson, how did he not do it against Denver? That dude is so frustrating. Like theoretically, he's got a big.
You watch his quarterback,
Jordan Love. Yeah, Jordan Love. It's not really doing much to help him out.
There's a guy on DraftKings that's way underpriced. Daigle probably was going to talk about him before he scrapped the game, but Nico Collins, 5'5". He think he's 7'2" on FanDuel. But 5'5" is pretty cheap, especially against this Carolina team that is allowing 10.9 yards per target to outside wide receivers. It's 31st in the NFL, 29th in touchdown rate allowed to those wide receivers. And he's a guy that's already shown he has like a huge ceiling, like spike week potential. Twice this season, he's had just like gigantic games against the Steelers and against the Colts. He's only Tyreek Hill, Brandon Ayuk, and AJ Brown are averaging more yards per route run than Nico Collins. There's volatility in his production, but we were talking about like a guy that has the kind of ceiling at that price. Like he definitely stands out as DraftKings is like they're missing the boat on his pricing.
And that kind of that pushes back against. I do wonder if people will play like a Dameon Pierce or Devin Singletary to save salary just to try to get exposure against the Panthers' run defense. But the Panthers are also probably getting back Frankie Louvu and Von Bell this game. Not to say like those are world beaters who are suddenly going to make the Panthers the best run defense in the league, but I think they'll help quite a bit. So that's good exposure through the air for the Texans too.
Am I wrong to say Singletary has kind of put a dent in Pierce of late the last couple of weeks? Am I making that up? Or I think that happened.
Before the bye was the first time.
Yeah, because before that, Devin Singletary, like the last 2 weeks for Dameon Pierce were literally 100% of the team's touches and then 50%, like out of nowhere. So that 50% happened.
That's the area where their offensive line issues have shown up, like all the rotating door of guys that have gotten hurt. Like they just haven't been able to run the ball at all.
Rich, you're talking about like Jordan Love possibly hurting Watson. Marquise Brown right next to him at 5'2". With his quarterback Dobbs trying his best. How do we feel about Brown? I know we've been trying to make that one happen for a while, and we talk about targets and things like that. Some targets are not created equal. Some are better than others, and past 3 weeks not catchable.
Past 3 weeks, 25% of his targets have been deemed uncatchable. Only Amari Cooper has a higher rate of guys with 20 or more targets over that span, and that's just what's happened to the Josh Dobbs story, right? Like he's just been one of the most inaccurate quarterbacks the past month, and that's kind of sagged him down. So like you're getting that target volume, but they're very loosely labeled targets at this point. And he's also a guy, if you look at his game log, like if he doesn't score a touchdown, there's just no production. So I'd love to believe, but now that maybe when Kyler comes back, he turns around. I don't know if we'll see Kyler this week or not, though. But The
I don't
Ravens
think we're
defense,
seeing this week. It might happen. I've not
I
seen
don't
those
think
rumors.
so, but
Yeah,
it's Wednesday.
There's
They
some
let-
rumblings. Yeah, there's some rumors out there where Gannon is apparently telling everyone that like the moment he's ready and they think he's going to be ready sooner rather than later. If it's not this week, I still think it's week 10. I don't think they would bring him back on the road against Cleveland in his first start. I think they wait to at home in week 10, but I don't know.
The other one, by the way, Zay Flowers at 5'6". I was thinking Collins as well before you. Yeah, Collins at 5'5", Zay Flowers at 5'6". We talked about Deontay Johnson at a flat 5K, London at 5'1", Brown and Watson. It's just some really interesting names there.
If you're gonna play Eagle stacks, you got Terry McLaurin. You can run it back with two. Like he's pretty much separated. These last two games in particular, 52% target share and 25% target share. Not only that, but like the boundaries where the Eagles are getting, where the Eagles are getting exploited, as opposed to the slot. So yeah, McLaurin stands out too as the player to run it back with. Clearly,
I got one last guy too for the leverage, and I know no one wants to play this dude, but Garrett Wilson. I mean, Zach Wilson's shown like a smidge of competency. Right before the bye, he caught 8 of 12 targets for 90 yards against the Eagles, which again plays into what Daigle just laid out for Terry McLaurin. But we always talk about the blitz, right, against the Wink defense, right? And Wink's sending all the blitzes he can at Zach Wilson. Like probably he might blitz every snap if he can this game. But you look at it, when Zach Wilson's been blitzed, he's targeted Garrett Wilson 61% of the time.
Wow.
61% of the time. He has 73% of the team air yards when Zach Wilson's been blitzed. When Zach Wilson has been blitzed and not pressured, Garrett Wilson's caught 11 of 16 targets. Only A.J. Brown has more receiving yards against the blitz when his quarterback's not pressured this season than Garrett Wilson. So if you're looking for some Breece Hall leverage, the problem with Garrett Wilson is like he is not budged in terms of pricing the whole year. Like you talk about Bijan finally going down, like Garrett Wilson has been priced like at like 6'6", like the whole year on DraftKings, and priced at like the low 7s in Fanduel consistently. But he is like an interesting leverage play based on kind of the matchup and where he's getting targets. And Zach Wilson's just been a little bit better, and it's made Garrett Wilson the last 2 of the 3 games before the bye like competent.
Rich, I know you like to guess, or you're always interested who the optimizer is giving us on a Wednesday night for tight end, and that's somehow been the play. I kind of let you know. I kind of already implied who. I didn't say the name, but context clues. You're smart enough to piece it together. How do we feel about Trey McBride? Trey McBride season. He's hitting a bunch of optimals here on DK. Let's see. His price is basically stone min. Yeah, 2.8. 2.8. And Ertz is not going to play, right? Is he officially ruled out?
He's on IR.
Okay, that's what I thought. How do we feel about McBride? It is a ready-made run back if we like Lamar stuff, which we should.
It's better than the Michael Mayer thing, because the thing with Michael Mayer at his pricing, whatever, he's 2,700, but Michael Mayer's breakout still came really in a route on 60% of the dropbacks. So like that was always kind of like could be semi-fragile. Like we would expect Trey McBride to like actually be out there like for almost every dropback. So at least alleviates kind of it being like a really terrible matchup. But yeah, I mean, who am I to yuck anyone's yum on a $2,800 tight end?
I didn't get to Mayer at the end of the day, which I got lucky with because that was Brian Hoyer, but he did run a route on 71% of dropbacks through 3 quarters, and then they benched him with the rest of the starters because that's what happens when Brian Hoyer puts you in a 31-6 hole against the freaking Bears.
I had some Kelsey, I had some Andrews, but when I saved some salary, I had a fair bit of Njoku. And let me tell you, red zone was not a lot of fun if you had Njoku last week. You just see him dropping back-to-back touchdowns. It's like, oh, I know his like route participation, like he was on the field a ton. I don't know if I trust this passing offense here for Cleveland.
It's funny because his 2 best games have come without Deshaun Watson.
Yes.
Yeah. So how do we feel about Njoku? Is he somebody that, like as far as like opportunity, it's there. But like their team total is 17 here against Seattle.
I mean, this is PJ Walker, and I don't know how real the Seattle pass defense is based on who they've played, but like I know that they're probably pretty good. Now that they've got Devin Witherspoon and Tariq Woolen back, like we'll see where it actually like it lies. But I'm not really going to challenge this defense with a bunch of Browns dudes this week.
John tight end, like what we like Kelsey, we like Andrews, like sure. I don't know how much we need to stress that. Anybody kind of sticking out as far as cheap stuff? Goddard feels like he's come alive the last several weeks. Is that somebody that does something for you? I suppose in your Hurts stacks. Connor Hayward, by the way, is hitting a couple optimals, which is weird. Like we're projecting 7 points for him. It's not a big projection, but he's just like stone mid. And
now I got to play Connor Hayward.
Is that any relation to Ironhead, or is this a different person altogether? I have no idea. I could not pick Connor Hayward out in a lineup. I don't know who he is. I just seen his name before, but
he's related to Cam Hayward, right?
Oh, is he from the Saints?
The Saints? Is he not? Is he not his younger brother?
I believe he's his brother. Yes.
Okay. And Jason Hayward possibly crossing over sports.
Someone in the chat fact check that.
I think he's his younger brother. He might be wrong. He's like more of a blocker too, though. He's not like much of a receiver.
Yeah, how do they not have any tight end that can, like, you figure somebody would step up for Pittsburgh, but I guess that's just not happening. John, give me some names. Anybody that we're excited about, or you want to at least feign excitement for some tight ends?
The more we talked about it, actually, just work through it on the show. Maybe like Sam Darnold onslaughts are the way to go. And then you bring it back.
Make a dummy lineup with Sam Darnold right now. Can we play Kelsey, Cooper, Kupp, Breece Hall?
Give me Jamar Chase. Give me Chase on the run back. Because it's like I've been trying to think about, do I want Ayuk or Kittle? Either. They're both good options, but we're at tight end. So you just kind of saw the same thing that happened when Debo was out, and Debo's going to be out this game last week. Kittle still soaked up a 24% target share and led the team in receiving yards. And that's what happened whenever Debo was out last year. 24.4% target share, 17.7 points per game at tight end. And remember, he went on that hellacious stretch where he led the league in receiving touchdowns while Debo was out. It's kind of the same spot again. So I may play 3 players with Sam Darnold at least.
I love it. Sure, why not?
We're all clearly like still sifting through everything because there's so many moving pieces with 13 games this week. Mm-hmm. So we're just making sure we touch on everything. Yeah, we're covering all our ground here.
To be fair, the slate does look pretty fun too. It looks fun. It looks like we have a lot of plays and a lot of options, whereas the past 2 weeks with the injuries and some kind of the chalk, like it's been very kind of condensed, like where we've been building lineups as a community. So it looks more open this week outside of a couple guys. Like I said, Breece Hall is going to be really popular. But
anytime you could talk about Sam Darnold, Derek Carr, and Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts all being viable plays, I mean, that's a slate. That's tournaments right there.
You got anybody, Rich, you want to throw out there?
A couple guys. Dalton Schultz is still just getting like immense usage in the red zone. He's 16th in all tight ends and target share outside the red zone, but he's first in the NFL of all tight ends and target share inside the red zone. Panthers, they've been really garbage against tight ends all year. 27th in yards per target, 25th. Like I said, maybe them getting some of the linebackers changes and things. And then Jake Ferguson, like quietly the usage is there, but like he hasn't gotten the targets the past 2 weeks. But when we last left off, Jake Ferguson ran a route on 85% of the Dallas dropbacks against the Chargers. He leads the team in red zone target share. It's kind of a way to get in through this game. And the Rams, like, are another team that we've been kind of targeting weekly with some of these tight ends too. So Jake Ferguson might fly under the radar because the targets haven't been there, but like ran the most routes he did Monday before the bye.
I can't tell if Jake Ferguson is like on the verge of breaking out or just like not doing anything. Like every single week, I cannot pinpoint like what direction he's going.
We got Cowboys tight end and former Cowboys tight end there in the pitch. And I did Google, by the way, Connor Hayward, the brother of Cam Hayward, but they're both the children of Ironhead Hayward. Craig Ironhead Hayward is the dad.
So great, man.
Yeah, I did. I was just throwing that out there. I was just Rolodexing Haywards in my head. So there you go. Shout out to the Hayward family.
It's like the Amon-Ra family. Just like it all trickles down, just all athletes.
One of them is like the father is like a weightlifter or something like that, or like
he's fit.
He's in the fitness.
The mother was it a swimmer, a sprinter?
I'm not sure.
An Olympic athlete? Yeah, it was something. It all trickles down because remember, Amon-Ra's father handpicked or like found a wife that he thought was suitable to create super children. Like that was their backstory. he wanted to have like super athletic children, and like so then they got together because they were two elite athletes.
On like the first date, is he making her do the cone drill, or he saves that for like the fourth date? Like when does he bust that out?
You can always tell a swimmer. Swimmer's the most defining, easiest to pick out.
All right, that is the slate. That is the 13 games. In a second, we're going to talk the movie Trick or Treat. By the way, I mentioned it at the top. We're going to have that pinned on the old YouTube. Hit that like button, subscribe, turn on the notifications, do all those things. Leave some comments. Movie, if you have any movie comments, but I'm sure it will be something that'll be worth talking about in the conversation in a second. But you also want to participate in the Listener League contest, because standard contest, but then you also, it's just $5 to jump in. If you happen to finish first, you will get a month free of RotoGrinders Premium. And that's like all the sports, the bells, the whistles, the projections, the ownership, the optimizer, all the goods, everything with the exception of NASCAR. NASCAR, come on. Is that really a sport? That's a whole other conversation, I suppose. I always have to drop the qualifier because one person one time is going to be like, hey, you said I get all the sports and I can't get the NASCAR, and it's a la carte, it's a whole thing. So there you go. NASCAR is a la carte. My apologies, but everything else you get a month free. Just jump in that contest, $5. Feel free to take us down. But Rich, what are we doing first? Are you going to give us a movie, or are we going to talk the movie that's producer Rob is coming in?
Rob is here.
Yeah, can I make my bitch real quick? Are you guys already boxing me out of winning this thing every week and picking a movie?
Well, you only play one-sided. You don't watch the movies. You don't play along. So yeah, your complaint, I guess, is you finished higher than Rich last week. But Rich actually plays the game. He plays along. He lives in a society, and he's like, you know what? I'm going to watch the movies that everybody else is deciding. You refuse to participate.
I watch all the movies. The only time I couldn't make it last week on the show, and I'm getting yelled at for it. You know what October is for me? October is like my crazy month. So
it's a big month for you. My apologies for assuming you can't squeeze in a movie.
No, I'll be there. October. I'll be there for every show. But no, Rich can pick this week, and I'll just watch and protest, and then I'll come on and watch in silence.
What would you pick if you could pick, Rob?
Well, I know the show is big fans of Paul Giamatti, so yes. I wanted to pick an out there Paul Giamatti movie. I was going to pick Shoot 'Em Up with Clive Owen as well.
I think Daigle would like that.
Yeah.
So that was what I was.
Yeah. It's Clive Owen. Clive Owen's in it. He killed a man with a carrot.
Seen that before.
don't ruin it.
Throw Big Mama's house at us. Or
my bad.
Like that.
Spoiler alert. I spoiler alerted early.
But I haven't watched that movie in a while. I've been wanting to watch it again. So that was going to be my pick this week, because we were talking about how we need more fun movies. And I hope as we talk about Trick or Treat, you guys found this movie fun at least.
Let's see. 82% from the critics on Rotten Tomatoes, 72% for the audience score. I'll get the IMDb score in a second. I know Rich likes the old IMDb score. That's useful as well. But who wants to go first, Rich or John? Your thoughts? Trick or Treat. By the way, I just want to say this. I watched it on Max, the Max app. Mm-hmm. It was number 7, the 7th most popular watched movie on Max. Wow. This movie came out like 15 years ago. I guess it's the Halloween tie-in. Like people are just like, we got to watch this because it's Halloween. There's so many good movies on Max. And then there's Trick or Treat. But
that's every single app right now. It's usually horror movies at the top because everyone's watching the scary movies. Rob would suggest everyone do that year round, but October is when everyone really does it.
Right.
Okay.
And for me, this is a Halloween tradition. This is one of those movies that everyone has their Christmas movies they go to. I go to Trick or Treat almost every year on Halloween because I think it's like the best Halloween movie. I'm not saying the best horror movie, but in terms of encompassing Halloween, this is like the best Halloween movie.
By the way, 6.7 on IMDb, Rich. Do you confirm? Were you a fan of Trick or Treat? Of course, starring the great, who was starring in this? Oh, Anna Paquin, the delightful Anna Paquin, Brian Cox, Leslie Bibb. I think those are the really known people that we would see. Oh, my favorite part of this movie, before we kind of jumped the gun, I suppose, But I always wondered what happened to the kid from Bad Santa. And now I know. Oh my God. I was like Leo DiCaprio, like pointing at the screen, like, oh, there he is. There's the Bad Santa kid.
I wish I could have put a bet on DraftKings because I was like, I 100% know Dean's going to bring up that kid's from Bad Santa. I knew that was coming.
He's like our generation, like the Sandlot kid. Like it's very similar. I don't know if they're related or not, but yeah, I feel like that kid got typecast. We haven't seen him in much else. I meant to check out his IMDb, but I was happy to see him, even though he was wrecking pumpkins. But yeah, Rich, your thoughts as far as... I'm more curious.
I think I've actually talked about this movie with Rob, so I'll let you guys go.
John.
Well, I was going to say you go ahead, Dean, because you're the one who usually does not like the horror movies. If you even consider this a horror movie.
It was trying to be a little more clever than it actually was. Like it was trying to be like horror movie, like it's like Halloween Memento. I think it was what it was sort of trying to do. It was fine, I didn't love it. Also, Anna Paquin is like cast as like this, unattractive like woman, like nobody wants to talk. It's like what are we doing here? Like Anna Paquin is like, who was buying that? Like who would want to date Anna Paquin? Like I got this slob over here who may if you're really nice to him. What was that, Rob? Why was Anna Paquin like cast as like this that was not delightful?
That was you misinterpreting what was going on in the movie. She was lacking confidence because she was quote unquote the runt of the litter. And if you go back and watch the movie again, you'll get all these references as they're talking about like her lack of confidence. She's not able to find anyone because they think it's for, spoiler alert, to be like a guy to date. But it's not, because they're werewolves, which was really heavily hinted at throughout the entire movie. And I love this movie. I think it was clever. I love anthology movies to begin with, when you can get multiple like short stories. But the fact that they were able to tie in every single short story to each other, they're weaving in and out of them, I thought was one of the best anthology movies I've seen. And there's others that I like. But to be able to do it that way was very like different, to make sure that you saw each character.
Do you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite part of the story?
I want to like the bus one more than I do. I think it has the strongest elements, but pulled off the weakest, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I do think the werewolf stuff's good. I mean, the opening with the principal and the kids is probably the best story in terms of like entertainment value. It's not a scary movie. I don't think it's meant to be a scary movie. It's meant to be an entertaining Halloween
like a Ghost Stories movie.
I appreciate this more than which I know will probably be offensive, but more than like the old school horror movies, like like Jason and Halloween attempt to be scary and they're iconic, but to me, outside of being cult classics, like they don't age well, which again, I know is offensive. People love those movies, but I think this is more enjoyable than that.
Yeah, it's like a comfort movie. Like it's like, I mean, as much as a movie about murdering children can be, it's a comfort movie. So I think it's a great Halloween movie. I think you can actually even watch it with your kids. I know it'd probably be a little scary, but like when they're starting to hit those teen years, unlike us when we were forced to watch horror movies when we were like 4 or 5 years old back in the late 80s, early 90s, that doesn't happen as much anymore nowadays. It's a 5 out of 5 for me in terms of just enjoyability and rewatchability.
Michael in the chat, Rob, watched the movie with us and asked, what was the purpose of the couple? What was their connection?
So the couple, that they were the tie, like they tied the entire movie together. You start on that couple, right? And you do see them again within the scene where they're at the Halloween festivities in town. And what you find out is they are one of the neighbors of some of the other people from the story. And what happens is it comes back to showing why Sam targets them in the beginning of the movie, right? Because she blows out the candle. I mean, the pumpkin. So they're basically they tie the entire movie together and allow everyone to work those stories together as an anthology.
Did you want to put a score on it, Rich? I know you said you've seen it before. You talked about it before. I know Producer Rob, you put a 5 out of 5. You're just a number scale. You don't do tight ends or
I already have established my scale because we do the movie reviews every 2 weeks over on Hometown Ghost Stories. So we did 5 out of 5 stars. I'm switching to 5 out of 5, whatever associates the movie. So 5 out of 5 Sams on this movie for me.
5 out of 5. So that's like you don't do a decimals? Like
we do decimals. I do.
You gotta leave some wiggle room. Like you're saying, nothing can top this.
In terms of a Halloween movie, I don't think there is a better Halloween movie out there than Trick or Treat. There might be better horror movies. There's obviously better movies overall.
You clearly have not watched Garfield Halloween.
Do you like the Scream series, or like you one of those guys doesn't like the Scream stuff?
I like Scream. The newest Scream I thought was trash, but the Scream series is usually enjoyable.
Yeah, I enjoyed those for what it's worth. You say I'm not a big horror guy, but that's more of like satire and comedy, and obviously there's some horror elements too. But Rich, did you give your official? Do you have a tight end?
Yeah, I give this a Taysom Hill, versatile. Fits a lot of things you want it to do.
But I agree with you, Rob. As far as the bus scene was like probably my least favorite scene. I think it felt like it went long and kind of dragged, even though the movie was pretty quick. But it just felt like it just was too long. I feel like kind of lost me in the middle of it.
I feel like a still shot of it is all you need because like the scene is cool. But yes, maybe it does drag on just a hair.
I just think getting to them coming out of the water could have happened faster. I just think that you can get that whole scene established way faster than they did. And again, it's only an hour and a half movie, like you said. But it felt to your point, the pacing just felt a little off from that little portion. It's a little nitpick though.
Yeah, it's like it was a scene from a different movie, almost, kind of, sort of. Yeah, John, what do you have as far as Trick or Treat?
I haven't given anything over a 7 yet. I'm trying to have standards with the scale, so I will give
sideways scale.
I will give this a 6.1 and take it.
It's fair.
That's enjoyable. That's okay. That means I'll rewatch it eventually.
There you go. And then you'll pick up on more things. You'll pick up on the werewolf reference right away, right out the movie.
Yeah, because I didn't see all the tie-ins coming either. I don't know if you're supposed to the first time you watch it. I did not.
No.
Okay, good.
But when you rewatch it, you're gonna be like, holy shit, they are just giving this werewolf thing away the entire time. From I think one of their first things was a werewolf reference. Fun fact about the movie, when the kid's peeping in on all the girls in the changing room in the beginning?
Yes.
That's the same kid that plays Sam throughout the entire movie as well. All of the trick-or-treaters in the movie were mostly little people because of what time they were filming at night, but they wanted Sam to still be played by a child because of the way a child moves versus an adult. So a fun little info there for the movie. And Trick or Treat 2 is supposedly in production. It's supposedly been in production for 15 years. And it's basically the horror equivalent of Game of Thrones, where we just keep hearing that there's a script. It hasn't been made. And there was a lot of turmoil with this movie. It was supposed to come out in theaters. And I remember seeing the trailer and the commercials for this movie. And then it never came out. And I was sitting there like, when is this movie coming out? And then it quietly got released on video rather than coming out in theaters. And then it just gained a gigantic cult following. And it gets more and more popular year after year. If you walk by the mall, you'll see Sam characters all over the place, which is impressive for only being one movie. So
does the second one have a theme yet, or just the idea of a script?
Supposedly the script is just written. We don't know what the theme is going to be. If you want a movie adjacent to this, that is technically in the same universe. If you saw that movie Krampus that came out about 5 or 6 years ago, somewhere around that time, it had a pretty good cast as well. It's from the same makers, and they say that it is in the same universe as Trick or Treat.
There's several. Oh, there's a whole bunch of Krampuses.
Oh yeah, there was a big Krampus boom. But Adam Scott is in. Adam Scott's in the one I'm talking about. It's got a pretty good cast.
The big Krampus boom of like that's what the aughts are.
Yeah,
Krampus the Devil Returns, Krampus the Avenger. Oh, Krampus fought Bigfoot in 2021.
yeah.
And spoiler alert, I
he
guess
did.
he won because The Return came out in 2022. so
Or he lost and he had to come back, right?
I don't know. Yeah, all right. So there's a lot of Krampus movies that I was not aware of. I went to Box Office Mojo, and apparently for Trick or Treat, $3 million is what it opened at in 1,300 theaters, give or take, in 1986. Wait, hold on. This is a different movie.
You're looking at Trick or Treat.
Oh, that's why.
Ozzy Osbourne. So that's why in our private chat, I specifically let you guys know it's Trick or Treat with Anna Paquin so that we all watch the same movie.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. I clicked on the wrong, and that's why I guess
do I want to go back and watch Trick or Treat?
I think it's finally, they just announced that it's going to be streaming. And I can't remember if it's on Screenbox or not, which I should know since I am signed to the company that runs Screenbox.
You should be on top of the such things.
Should be. Yes.
We also need your letter grade, Dean.
Yes.
I appreciate. I think it was like, more ambitious than a typical horror movie is. Right? They're trying to be clever, and again, they're trying to be Memento-esque. Am I wrong in saying that? People compare this to like a horror movie, Memento horror stuff? Is that something other people have said, or is that just me?
I don't think it's Memento-esque. I think it's just you're seeing tie-ins because Memento is all about starting at the end and then working your way backwards. This is more just intersecting points of the same stories, right?
So I can appreciate the effort. I didn't love it, didn't hate it. I would say it's like a C minus.
There you go.
C minus. Yeah, it's fine. And on Rob's point, I probably would, given some time passing, might like it more on a second viewing. Where that's like I think that was pretty clever. They kind of planted that there, and like I might have not picked up on that on the original viewing. But Rich, you're going to assign us a movie now. I don't know if Rob's going to watch it.
No, I thought we were watching Shoot 'Em Up.
Oh, that's where we're going with? You're yielding? We're going to go to Shoot 'Em Up?
Rob said he's committed.
I mean, I'm committed. Okay. I just don't know if you guys want to tap out since I'm going to win every week. That's the only thing I'm concerned about.
Josh Downs will have something to say about that soon enough, sir.
I mean, how did you guys not get to Lamar Mark Andrews last week?
I think you don't understand the rules of this thing.
You didn't win the right way.
We do not play good lineups on purpose.
Okay, touche.
Yeah.
Touche.
I mean, we can't win actual prizes, so.
All right, fair enough.
I think we're all playing Sam Darnold stacks this week based on.
You've already heard onslaughts.
All right.
I mean, it's a Wednesday night, grain of salt. So I'm not sure how committed I am to that, but it's an interesting idea, if nothing else. But yeah,
to Shoot 'Em Up or Sam Darnold.
Well, I'm going to watch because I play by the rules. And
have you seen Shoot 'Em Up, Dean?
I don't think so. If I have, I completely forgot it. But like, I love Giamatti. Clive Owen's a lot of fun for sure. I was just talking.
It's a fun movie. Just go in knowing it's a fun movie is all I will say.
Yeah, I was thinking of. Children of Men is just a spectacular movie.
That is
not Children of Men, dude.
That is not a fun movie, though.
That's the thing. I don't know how to like recommend movies that aren't fun. Apparently, he's like, oh, that's great. The directing,
a spectacular movie, not fun.
Yeah. Was he the one that did? Was that Law Abiding Citizen? Is that him? That's Gerard Butler. I always confuse those two. That's a fun movie.
You were thinking of he did
Inside Man?
Did he do Inside Man? I think he did Inside
so.
Man. Yeah, it was Inside Man.
Maybe I was conflicting those two for some reason. I'm not sure.
Levis stacks. Now we're cooking. This is like the stuff I play in this tournament.
I want 3/4 of Levis. What a disaster that's going to be. Well, since you're here, Rob, tell the people where they can find you, where they can get your Halloween takes and things of that sort.
Well, first of all, if you're into best ball, you can catch me over at Spike Week with Eric Beimfour, where we're very excited that Trey McBride is finally going to get his turn to start hitting our lineups for sure. And if you're into Halloween stuff, you can catch me over at Hometown Ghost Stories, where we tell ghost stories every Tuesday night live at 9 p.m. Except next week, we're going to be live Monday night doing listener submitted ghost stories, which is some of our, we get some of the best feedback on. And then Tuesday night, we're going to be doing a live review of the movie Halloween. And if you want to do something live, if you are close to Plymouth, Massachusetts, tomorrow night, this is up John Daigle's alley. We are going to be at a beer and wine tasting event telling ghost stories in Plymouth, Massachusetts at the Beer Cellar. And then I'll be at a horror convention in Plymouth as well on Saturday doing a live podcast over there. So when I'm not here next Tuesday or next Wednesday, it's because I dropped dead of exhaustion, not because I didn't want to watch the movie. So.
Are you or are you not drinking Merlot is the important question at this wine convention.
Well, since I cannot drink beer, I will try some of the wines that are there. I'll do that, and I'll get back to you.
All right. John, tell the people where they can find you.
I would love to be able to be found at that convention, but unfortunately cannot fly over in the next 12 hours. So you'll have to wait till the off season to see me, Rob. And then also, as always, 4for4.com, waiver wire column happening every single week. We're not halfway through the season yet. That's what I'm being told. So we have a long way to go, boys and girls.
Rich?
I feel like a lot of people's season's already over. But, we are more than halfway through the fantasy regular season for a lot of people. That's why we're here and we're talking DFS. But yeah, sharpfootballanalysis.com. You can use promo code Halloween all the way through midnight on Halloween for 50% off anything on the site.
All right. For producer Steve, for producer Rob, for Rich, for Daigle, I was Dean. For RotoGrinders, thanks for listening to the Pick 6 Show, week number 8. Go win something. We're out of here. Holler.